Hi and welcome everybody back to another love transformation class. And I'm really excited to dive into this topic today. We've all heard of the concept of the masculine and feminine balance and how important it is in dating. So today's expert is going to dive really deep on this whole concept. It's not just about acting in a feminine way and attracting men and all of that kind of strategy. We're really going to understand what this means to embody the feminine and why that's so important in terms of creating beautiful, loving partnerships. Welcome, Helena.
Hi, thank you so much. Yes, this is such an important topic, and there's a lot of misconceptions out there about feminine energy and how to use it in a way that's really going to work for you in all areas of your life. So I'm so excited to dive in today.
Awesome. And one of the things that I wanted to sort of touch on first of all is, we sort of understand what masculine and feminine is, but why do you think we have this issue today of it being so important, in that where we're tending to skew in this 21st century is for women being accused of being overly masculine, and that's a problem for them, creating connection, lasting connections in the relationship. Why do you think there tends to be a trend for that to happen?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of different reasons for this. Most women today are working, they have full-time jobs or their own businesses, and they also may be raising kids. And in order to do that effectively, you have to be in your masculine energy a lot. And by the way, your masculine energy is a fantastic thing. Common misconception is when people hear me talk about shifting into your feminine, they think, that means like squashing their masculine energy down. And that really couldn't be further from the truth. I really like to think of this as like ramping up both your masculine and your feminine energy, just using them in a way that's going to work for you. So if you're working full time, if you have kids that you have to attend to, and just, things to do in your life, your masculine energy is going to be employed, is a good word for it. And again, that's a great thing. And to answer your question, it can be so easy to get stuck in that place. So then when we come home and we're with our man, or if you're single and going out on dates and meeting new men, it can be a challenge to kind of shift out of that doing and thinking and analyzing and planning energy and shift into your feminine energy, which is the receiving, being in the moment, trusting and allowing and responding energy.
Beautiful. And we're going to dive a little bit more into why that's so important in terms of a romantic connection and a lasting sort of dynamic in a relationship. But let's first of all, touch on all the ways that masculine energy shows up when we're in the presence of a man.
Yeah, great question. So, everyone watching can just imagine themselves with a man right now. It could be your man, or, a man you're really attracted to, or just a brand new man, right? Someone you're about to meet. And immediately just, what do we tend to do? Normally we go right up into our heads. We wonder what he's thinking about us, or what would be the perfect thing to say next. Or we might be fast forwarding, thinking like, would my friends and family like him? Do we want the same things? Are we on the same page? All of these things throw us right up into our head, into our masculine energy. And again, not a bad thing in, other areas of your life, but when you're wanting to create that deep attraction and connection with a man, you really want to be in your body and in touch with your heart and your emotions, that juicy feminine energy that's going to draw him into you and actually create that connection. Something I always say is the way to connect to a man's heart is always through your own heart first. It is just the only way. If you're up in your head trying to mentally create some kind of connection, a guy might like you, he might find you attractive, he might feel like you're connecting on a friendship level, but that actually does nothing for romance. So if you want to connect to his heart, you have to connect with your own heart and your own feminine energy first.
Yeah. And what sort of behaviours do you see when a woman is in her masculine? What are some of the ways in which, let's perhaps start with some of the obvious ways, and then maybe we can move on to some of the less obvious ways being in our masculine causes behaviours perhaps that aren't necessarily attractive to a man?
Oh yeah. I mean, so the most obvious you can think of, masculine energy is leaning forward. So anytime you're leaning forward physically, or even mentally and emotionally by constantly thinking about a man, even when he's not right in front of you, obsessing about him, replaying the last conversation, or beating yourself up because he's pulling away right now, anything that looks like leaning forward. A lot of women think they're not leaning forward because they're not maybe initiating contact and driving to him and paying for everything. Those are all masculine energy traits, right? They have that forward leaning, pushing outward quality, right? But they actually are, because mentally they're leaning forward, right? They could physically be leaning back, but if you're up in your head analyzing where you stand with a man, or where's this relationship going, all of those things, you're actually, pushing that energy out mentally. So, anything that looks like that or feels like that is actually in your masculine energy.
One of the things I noticed that women often tend to do is this kind of overgiving. If I cook for him, if I run errands for him, if I'm super nice for him, and we might think that those types of things are feminine energy things, but they're actually masculine energy and kind of controlling, right? Can you explain how would we tell the difference?
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Again, very common misconception because, a lot of people think giving and nurturing are feminine energy traits, and I actually disagree with that. The way I was trained, as you know, they're very masculine energy. If you're, hoping for some kind of result or outcome, or you're just constantly giving and doing, there's a lot of like forward leaning energy in some of those things, right? Over functioning is one of the top problems I see. And that looks like, some of the things you mentioned, always being the one to initiate contact with a man, always being the one to drive to him, to pay for everything, to, keep things moving forward. I know it can be difficult to get out of this because a lot of women think, okay, if I stop doing all of these things, the relationship's just going to fizzle, or he's going to think I'm not interested, or he's going to lose interest. And so we do all these things to kind of make it easy for a man, right? And all of those things actually just push him away on a very deep subconscious level.
Yeah, and I want to actually chat about and to share with our audience as well about, I guess, the underlying psychology behind why do we have this tendency to want to think, if I try really hard, he'll be more impressed with me and he'll reciprocate those feelings. Like, where does that come from? Why do we end up doing that and not even realize, do you think?
You know what? That's a great question. First thing that comes to mind is, I think so many of us these days we've kind of been brought up placing our worth and our value on what we can do and accomplish and give to others, right? So the idea of a man showing up and just loving us for who we are, not because of what we do or give to him, is a pretty foreign concept to so many of us women, right? So the idea of just receiving from a man, a lot of us didn't even have like a framework for that in our brain. So, I mean, the good news is once you create it and experience what that feels like and how much easier everything can flow when you're in that leaned back feminine place, you can then start to make some shifts.
Yeah, beautiful. And we're going to actually go into quite a bit of detail a bit later on in our chat about how we can shift this around. But I just sort of wanted to recap what you said there, because I think that's important for us to sort of have an understanding of the fact that we've grown up being rewarded and being validated and even developing a lot of our sense of self-worth, right, around being a giver and being a good girl and pleasing perhaps our parents and other people. And so would you say that's sort of like a pattern perhaps that we've developed, in childhood, or perhaps even noticed our parents with that kind of dynamic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many women I hear from who that's all they know because they grew up watching like their mothers or, other family members or friends doing that. And that's like the only model they have. And you said something else that was great. Yeah. we were brought up thinking like, well, you're supposed to be a good person and giving and unselfish person. And I just wanted to make a distinction. Yeah, this isn't about being selfish and just taking everything a man has to offer and not giving anything in return. You know, giving back to a man is fantastic. You know, giving back from that place where like your cup's overflowing because, you know, he is giving you so much energy and attention or love and affection, whatever it is that's happening here. Giving back is great. It's just when we're leaning forward and we're giving something because we feel empty, we're feeling lack in the relationship, or we're starting to feel anxious and insecure, and we lean forward and we start over functioning and over giving, hoping that the guy is going to give you something back in terms of his time or affection or even commitment. That's when we can get into trouble. I call that giving to get. And it just feels like pressure to a man. All of these things, even if we're doing it with a big smile on our face and we think we're being really nice and understanding, a man can feel that if we have this agenda and it just feels like, you know, he just wants, it repels him. It'll make him want to back off and create some space because it's just this feeling of like, ooh, she wants something from me that I'm not just freely giving her on my own right now, right?
Yeah, it's actually really counterintuitive because I don't think we give men the credit that they deserve for being able to really sort of see beneath what our ultimate intentions are behind that behavior, right?
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah. We tend to think men are clueless, but they're actually not. They're very sensitive to this vibe we're giving off. So if you're trying to be cool and understanding and collected and all of those things, but deep down you're feeling really anxious or you're trying to make something happen constantly with him, he can feel that. Absolutely. A man can pick that up a mile away, right?
Can you give us like a few little examples of perhaps some of the, some of the subtle ways in which our masculine energy can creep in our everyday, I guess, sort of dating life?
Yeah, great question. Something I always, if we're going like more subtle, the more subtle ways, I always have my clients ask themselves before they do anything, if they're questioning, a lot of questions I get are like, should I reach out to him? Should I give him this gift? Should I cook him dinner? You can always ask yourself, what am I hoping will happen? Everyone can write that down. What am I hoping will happen? And if you can answer that strongly, like, well, I hope he'll see what a great woman I am and how wonderful we'd be together, right? Or I'm hoping he'll, see that I would be the perfect girlfriend and he'll commit to me. Or I'm hoping he'll want to spend more time with me and ask me out for next weekend. If you have some kind of really strong agenda like that, you know that you might be at this place where you're giving to get, and he's going to be able to feel that. You know, on the other hand, if you ask yourself this question, what am I hoping will happen? And the answer is nothing. I just, I was cooking dinner. I had some extra, he was on his way home. It would feel good to see him. And there's no real strong attachment to the outcome or the result. Then you're good. You can really do anything when you're coming from this super confident feeling place. Most women, I'll tell you, are not at that place if they're coming to me for advice because the man's pulling away or something like that.
And so the $1 million question, right, is how do we detach? Is there a secret hack or a tip or something for being able to date from a place of not having expectations and being able to not put all of that kind of energy into him?
That is such a great question. I don't know if anyone's asked me that in that way before. So that really makes me think, first thing that comes to mind is kind of like, what is your philosophy on life? Right? Like what belief systems are operating here? If you have the belief that like things are always working out for you, right? And no man is your last chance. If things don't work out with this guy, there's a million other guys right around the corner who would just love to be with you. And you kind of zoom out a little bit and get a bigger view versus being zoomed in and, oh my God, I don't think I'll ever feel this way about this, somebody else ever again. And you put the guy on a pedestal, then you automatically get thrown into this place where you're subtly trying to like prove yourself to him or win his love or like win him over in some way. You feel the difference there between those two? Yes, good. You're nodding. Yeah. So the more you can come from this kind of, it's almost kind of like a feminine energy way to live your life where you just kind of trust. Trusting is a really feminine energy quality. It's not very much talked about, but trusting and surrendering and just being open to what shows up and being able to kind of receive from life and the universe, not just from this man who's right in front of you. When you're able to do that, it helps you really like release your attachment to the outcome or the result of any interaction you have with a man, right? Do you agree with me there?
Beautiful. I love that mindset hack. So really, really trying to embody and having that belief that the universe it's always working out for you. I love that. That's so good. In terms of practices, like daily practices or anything else, do you have any other sort of tips about how we can, stay detached, stay centered, stay in our feminine?
Oh, great question. Yeah. I mean, things like meditation, obviously really helpful. I just released a meditation program with my friend Anya Grace, who I believe you know, called the Feminine Empowerment System that kind of activates each of these aspects of your feminine energy, 5 core aspects. For those of you who aren't like, that's not your thing, that's okay. It doesn't have to be that. It could just be getting into the moment, really like experiencing every single moment, slowing down the tempo of every moment. I talk about this in my free gift that I'm offering. It's the 3rd key of my 3 keys to attract the man you want. So everyone can go check that out. Slowing down the tempo of every moment so you can actually experience it while it's happening. That, in my opinion, is a spiritual practice. Just as spiritual as meditating or, doing some other kind of self-improvement thing. If you can really like drill down into the present moment, now you're in your feminine energy. Now you're out of your head, trying to like control or manipulate every situation and circumstance around you. If that makes sense. I hope I explained that correctly.
Yeah, beautiful. And I do think sometimes, I mean, all the women on our summit are, I know, intelligent and self-aware and willing to do the work, but sometimes just knowing, okay, I should be thinking this way, doesn't always translate into a change of behaviour. So I love the fact that your free gift, which is actually going to be available for download, so free, so exciting, actually offers some beautiful practices as well that can really help to be feminine and embody that femininity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that it's the life experience that teaches you much more than the words themselves. We have so many words to offer and that's such a great thing, but it's the putting it into practice, actually putting yourself in front of a man and seeing what your tendencies are. Do you tend to shut down emotionally and freeze up? Very common thing. Every time a man comes towards you, do you want to like back up and create some distance between the two of you? Or do you want to lean forward and make something happen and try and get him to do what you want, right? That's really valuable information for you to have. So you want to be out there practicing, working with all of these tools. I mean, that will serve you better than just about anything else.
Beautiful. So I have a burning question actually in relation to masculine and feminine, and this conversation's come up quite a bit with my girlfriends, and it sort of, I guess, revolves around the fact that we live in really modern times and we're trying to sort of close that divide now between the gender roles and, women are becoming, a lot more successful and accomplished in traditional male roles. And I know many women don't necessarily want to have that traditional wife takes, stays at home, raises the children, the husband's the breadwinner. So I guess perhaps there's a little bit of a stigma around this masculine, feminine or male and female roles maybe being a little bit outdated. And I know a lot of my super modern female friends are all like, oh, that's kind of a bit old fashioned. I don't know whether I want to go with anything so traditional. So I really want to talk about why this really is so important and why it's so important now more than ever as well, even for such a, modern women when we want an equal type relationship, right?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, and again, it's not about conforming to like gender roles. Like, it's two separate things. You know, we all have both masculine and feminine energy inside of us, men and women. I personally think it's fantastic if you are an independent woman, if you're making multiple six figures, seven figures. You know, a lot of my clients are that way, and I think that's great. You don't want to like dim your light or like squash that part of yourself down. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it's about ramping up both sides and expanding and becoming more of who you are, not less, right? That being said, yes, we have obviously evolved very much as a society, but when it comes to attraction and these like softer dynamics between men and women, men's brains are hardwired the same way they were since the beginning of time, since like the caveman days, right? Men value what they have to work for in a lot of ways, right? And it's this masculine feminine. If you want a super masculine guy who's gonna care about your feelings and, you know, make decisions and get things done in the relationship and go after what he wants, most women want a guy like that, right? If you're coming at him with your masculine energy and he's a, you know, masculine energy guy, it's like a magnet with the two sides, right? It's like the same charge. It just, they just repel each other, push each other apart. So it's almost like turning that magnet around and attracting him towards you. Like I said, you could be the most successful woman in the world and still be feminine and create attraction and connection and real intimacy with your man, because that polarity is needed. And it's not about, you know, staying home and being a typical housewife. I mean, I know a lot of women who make way more money than their men, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, right? But it's about these dynamics of attraction. And like I said, men's brains are hardwired the same way they always have been since the beginning of time, pretty much, when it comes to some of these things. So you want that polarity there, that that's what creates sexual tension and intimacy, truly, I believe.
Yeah, so for someone who does have the type of role that requires them to be in their masculine, so to be, you know, powerful decision making, really outcome driven, you know, really well organized, and they're in that energy all day, every day in their working week. How do they manage that? You know, coming home at night, on weekends, how do you like shift in and out of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, everyone kind of says the typical stuff like, oh, come home and take a bubble bath and play soft music. And I mean, that's all great stuff, right? You know, but I kind of like to think about, like, do things in a way that are maybe you've never heard before, right? So it's just about getting out of your head and into your body. If a woman is that way, like you said, super ambitious, driven, successful woman, just the tiniest shift in this direction can get you the biggest, most dramatic results. So if you're having a hard time, best way to get into your feminine energy is just getting in touch with how you're feeling in any given moment. So many of us are walking around just trying to get things done. We're like lunging from one obligation to another that we're cut off from our feelings. A lot of my clients are like, well, I don't even know what I'm feeling most of the time. So I've really found that like body sensations are kind of like a gateway into your deeper feelings. So everyone can do this right now. You know, see if you can come up with some kind of body sensation. See if you can feel some like tension in your shoulders or in your stomach, or even like temperature, like if your hands feel cold or warm or something like that. Get into those body sensations and just put your attention there. See if you can kind of breathe into the tension, or just kind of put your awareness there. Not to try to like get rid of the tension or make yourself feel something that you're not, but just notice that. And if you're doing this right now along with me, you can't be up in your head and putting your awareness in your body at the same time, really. So that's one quick tool that you can do just at a moment's notice. That doesn't require you to like, you know, have 2-3 hours to yourself, especially if you have a busy schedule.
Love that. It's like a little micro practice that we can literally do anytime, which is awesome. I wanted to ask you about a scenario that I see happen a lot, and actually happened to me quite a bit in my 30s in my dating life, because I was very much in that doing that corporate girl and being in that masculine energy a lot, and tended to feel comfortable presenting myself as this accomplished, successful, polished, professional woman. And I often found that I attracted men, or you know, ended up in a relationship with men who were attracted to that. But the kind of dynamic was a little bit off. Like I felt like I was always in control of the relationship and they never really stepped up. But one of the most important things that I wanted to ask you about is, in hindsight, I almost felt like they never really saw the softer, the side of me that, you know, that really developed a true connection. It almost felt like a little bit of a superficial connection. What is that, what's happening there, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my cat Leo was just joining us. I don't know if you saw for a second, he loves to jump up and be involved when I'm making videos with other people. So yeah, absolutely. So did you find that you were attracting more feminine energy men who kind of needed you to take the lead and move things forward? Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's right. And I was attracted to that because I did feel as though they were sensitive, they were, you know, affectionate, they were, you know, almost had more of the balanced me out in terms of the feminine qualities, but something just never quite sort of felt right. And perhaps if there's anyone watching that's had that same experience as well, is it possible to shift that dynamic when you're actually seeing someone like that? Or how can you unwind or go about things a bit differently if that's the situation you're in?
Oh, such a great question. I mean, it's such a common thing. There's so much that goes into this. And of course, every situation is different. That's where, you know, getting some coaching or joining a community of women who are kind of dating or going through something similar can be so helpful to really get in there with your personal situation. But, you know, if you are attracting more feminine energy men, again, nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong if you want to take that masculine role and have a man who's kind of more softer and his feminine. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Most women, I would say, you know, 99% of women who I talk to want that masculine energy man. So just like you said, the purpose of all of this is not to make a man step up and do something, right? That's being masculine energy and results oriented. The purpose of getting into your feminine energy is, well, other than just it feeling great and uncovering this different part of yourself, is to see if he's capable, is to truly see if he's capable of stepping up or not, right? So if you're the one always texting him first, calling him, planning everything, so many women I hear from are in that situation. If you were to pull back on that and see what he does, you know, most likely he's going to come towards you. It might take him a little while if he's used to you being the one to do everything, but you just want to see if he's even capable. And in order to see that, you have to stop doing everything and over functioning. And the more you get into your feminine energy, the more you'll start attracting more masculine energy men who really like that and who want to take your feelings into account when they're planning and making decisions. Did you find that as well once you kind of made some shifts?
Yeah, definitely. And what I found was that even though there was a lot of love there, that dynamic of me being more in my masculine and attracting more of a feminine guy, it kind of felt exhausting. It felt really exhausting. It felt like, there wasn't really, if I did lean back and stopped putting all of the energy into keeping that relationship together, that it wouldn't have the same dynamic that it happened.
Absolutely. Yeah, sorry. He wants to join in on the conversation. Yeah, I found that as well. Being in your masculine always, especially in relationships, is exhausting for us women because, this is my own personal opinion, maybe, you know, it goes against our nature as women to be that receiving energy. So if you're doing and doing and doing, and you're gonna kind of hit a wall at some point and kind of crash and burn, because first of all, you're gonna get really angry and resentful if the man doesn't give you what you want in return, right? Something I always say is anger and resentment build in direct proportion to the amount of energy and effort you're putting out in the relationship, right? So if you're putting out all this effort and doing everything, and the man doesn't behave the way you were kind of subtly hoping he would, or not so subtly hoping he would, you're going to get angry and resentful and feel disappointed and frustrated. There's no way around it, right? So the way out of this is to pull back on some of that effort and just see what he does. Does he step up or not? And of course, there are ways to express your needs and feelings and boundaries that will actually bring him closer. But one of the first things you can do is just like stop doing all of the things that are pushing him away. Usually men will turn around on a dime as soon as you stop doing that.
Yeah. And so this is a question that I've had before, and I wasn't quite sure. I'd be interested to hear your take on this as well. So, sort of encouraging women who do have that tendency to put too much energy in, to be leaning forward and leaning forward, have sometimes said, well, if I do pull back, that's not me being authentic. That's not me being authentic to the feelings that I have. That's me, where do we draw the line, I guess, between, putting an act on that's kind of aloof and leaning in too much, but staying authentic to true to who we are? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh gosh, I am so glad you asked me that. My brain was going right there. You like read my mind. Yeah, this has to be authentic. It has to be 100% authentic. If you are trying, it's not about being aloof and playing hard to get. Like we said before, a man's going to pick that up immediately. If you're pretending anything, he's going to be able to feel it. He can feel the incongruence or the disconnect in your energy and vibe, and it'll make him feel unsafe to come close to you because he won't trust you on a very deep level. So I like to talk about this in terms of space and softness. So it's not about shutting down emotionally and being aloof. It's creating the space for him to come towards you. It's really just like leaning back, creating the space so there's room for him to in the relationship as the masculine energy partner, while being open and warm and receptive to him at the same time. It's kind of the opposite of what we all feel compelled to do. Sometimes we want to lean forward and make something happen, and then we shut ourselves down emotionally. So this is the opposite. If you can learn how to authentically lean back and stay open emotionally to a man. And that doesn't mean to like pretending you're okay when deep down you're feeling angry. You might be saying like, wow, I'm feeling really triggered right now. There's something going on with me. I might need to take a break from this conversation, but staying open in that moment rather than shutting down, making him wrong, blaming him, or just completely going quiet and disconnecting emotionally, which causes just as much damage in the relationship.
Yeah, and I love that. What tips do you have for women perhaps to be able to authentically be able to do that?
Yeah, so it goes back to the exercise. What are you feeling in this moment? And just being able to express that. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling disappointed. And saying that without this expectation, attached to it. Like, I'm feeling insecure, so I need you to do something differently so I don't feel that way. Feel the difference there. It's expressing how you're feeling without doing that to try to make something happen or making the man wrong. It definitely takes some practice, but once you start to try it, it'll just change all of your relationships, right? Not just your romantic ones. It can be difficult to do that. So, I always say start with the positive emotions. And a lot of people take this to mean talking about how we feel about him and the relationship and all this, deep stuff, but it's really not where it's at least not at first. You should just start talking about things that happened in your day. Keep it all about yourself and your own experience. Now you're building that muscle. So when you do have an argument or when you do feel disappointed because he forgot to call or something like that, then you can actually be really good at talking about some of these things coming from your feminine energy.
Beautiful. I love that. And one of the things that I hear a lot, and I guess it's sort of through some of the law of attraction theory about relationships and manifesting relationships too, is us being really responsible for our own emotions and not making him responsible for our emotions, right? So that's a beautiful, beautiful practice to be able to, I guess, improve the way that we communicate how we're feeling, right? Without sort of making him feel guilty or responsible.
Yeah, absolutely. Men they're pretty sensitive. Like we said before, they can kind of take everything as like a correction or a criticism. So they show up and they're just immediately hit with, I feel bad. I feel disappointed. Why did it take you so long to get back to me? There's nothing to compel him to keep coming towards you. Now, of course, it's fine to express unpleasant feelings as well. It's very important if that's what you're feeling, but it's all about the way you do it, right? So start with those positive emotions. Just get in the habit of it. You'll see him start to come closer, and then build that muscle. And then when you have to talk about some of these, less pleasant feelings, it'll be a lot easier for you.
Great, great. And do you think there's any other important things that we should really know, or that we should really start to understand about being in our feminine, that is critical to forming lasting relationships?
Yeah, we touched on it briefly, but just this whole trusting and allowing piece, which is not, like I said, not very much talked about, but it's super important. If you can kind of like allow yourself to be surprised and just like receive what shows up with full trust and faith that things are always working out for you, everything is unfolding the way it's supposed to in like the perfect scheme of your life, or whatever, anything that makes you feel better about whatever situation you're in, it can it really kind of opens you up both to yourself and to the man that's right in front of you, rather than seeing the world and every man who shows up through your old past wounding, or through this perception that's coming from past experiences, where now he's having to push the weight of that off of him, where you can't really see who he is. So just trusting is so important. Trusting yourself, trusting your own intuition and boundaries and feelings, and just trusting life. When you can do that, then you can start attracting men who you really trust. And you don't feel the need to control everything. I used to feel kind of like an octopus with 8 different hands in every situation, feeling like I had to control everything and just constantly worrying, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it's just no way to live, right? So if you can kind of lean back and allow yourself to be surprised and just be curious, like you said earlier, who is this man who showed up and why did he show up? And that's kind of magical, right? Now you're at a place where you can really start to create a connection with him.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, would you agree that it shouldn't feel hard? It shouldn't feel, moving through those early stages of dating through to commitment shouldn't feel like we have to try. It shouldn't feel hard, right? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, when the dynamic is functioning the way it's supposed to, it shouldn't feel hard. Unfortunately, a lot of us kind of grew up equating love with obstacles or uncertainty or pain or ambiguity or something like that. So yeah, when the dynamic is right, a man should be kind of being the one to move things along and getting you to commit to him, not the other way around. If you're at a place where you're trying to get a guy to commit to you, you've already lost that whole thing, right? It's something's off, something's not right there. So you want to work to reverse this whole dynamic. That's what all my programs and coaching and stuff is about, as I'm sure you as well. So yeah, it's about getting your own masculine energy and feminine energy functioning more freely. So then the dynamic between the two of you is the way it should be. That's just natural and free flowing, where absolutely it should feel so much easier than not that there's no hard work in relationships, right? But usually when a woman kind of starts to do this correctly and consistently, things fall into place with so much less effort on her part.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that it's the masculine energy in us that will want to try and find a strategy, or really understand what's going on, like you said earlier on about getting up in our head, seek out, what's a text message, script that I can send him that'll re-engage him, almost like a game of chess, try and manufacture how they can move the relationship forward, right? And instead, what I love is what you're saying is it's really more about going in and doing the inner work and embodying all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. When this is all the way it's supposed to, everything falls into place and it unfolds much more naturally, where there's if you're strategizing, if you're obsessing about a guy, if you're I'm going to do this to affect him in this way or make him feel this way about me, just like trying to get a guy to commit, it's never going to work, at least not for very long, right?
Yeah. And I know that our audience are going to want to learn more about how to actually go about doing this. So I love that you've got some amazing wisdom put together for our daily activation tool. Can you tell us a little bit more about what they're going to be able to access after this recording?
Yeah, so that's my free report and audio training that I'm providing for everyone watching this video, and that's called 3 Keys to Attract the Man You Want. And it really works no matter what your situation is. If you have a guy who's pulling away and you're looking to reconnect the relationship, or just really deepen the intimacy between the two of you, or definitely if you're single and looking to attract the right man for you, it really goes deep. Like I said, my tools are all about, hopefully, things you haven't heard before or haven't put that way before, to give you a whole new perspective on this so you can quickly and permanently start to turn some things around. So I go into like your subconscious drives. Like, do you tend to put a man on a pedestal? Do you go into convincing mode and try and like win a guy over? Those kinds of things. So it goes much, much deeper than just the typical how to attract a guy kind of material. So that is on my website, helenahartcoaching.com. And I'm sure you'll include a link as well.
Yeah, we will. So it's available via the button directly below the video. And I just want to thank you so much for the generosity of your time, your amazing wisdom. I mean, we know this masculine and feminine conversation is important, but I really love that you've added some extra dimensions to it so that it's not just a bit of a buzzword now. We really know that it is such a critical thing that we need to master in order to be able to have healthy, lasting relationships. So thank you, Helena.
You're welcome. Yes, I'm so glad that we got to talk about this really important topic, and I totally agree with you. I like to give you things you can actually do at a moment's notice, where you can put this into practice, because it is the life experience that's going to really shift things and turn things around for you, not just the words themselves.
Beautiful. So if you'd like to extend the conversation, or if you've got any questions or queries, jump over to the Facebook group and we can continue this conversation today. Otherwise, I'll see you for tomorrow's daily training. Bye for now.